And welcome to the webcast. Here we go. The screen didn't want to share. Here we go. My name is Christine Dorsey Davis. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio chapter of the American Planning Association, and I am your webcast moderator. Today is Friday, March 25th, and we will hear the presentation, Digital Planning in a Digital World. For technical help during today's webcast, you can type your questions in the questions box in your GoToWebinar tool panel. And for your content questions related to the presentation, again, just type those in the questions box in your GoToWebinar tool panel, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. If your question is for a particular panelist, it would help me, and just with time, if you would list who you want to answer the question. That just helps me. Coming up next on your screen is a list of our sponsoring APA chapters and divisions for 2022. Thanks to all those participating sponsors for making these webcasts possible and free to members. Today, we're hosted by the Technology Division of APA. You'll hear a bit more about them in just a moment, but thanks to you all for joining us this year and for hosting today's session. Today's session is worth 1.5 CM credits. You can log those by heading over to planning.org, log into your My APA account, and from there you can either search by today's title or event number, both of which can be found on our website, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast. And make sure that you like us on Facebook if you're on social media. That's where I post any important date or time changes. I also try to let everyone know when we have an upcoming session available for you to register for. So be sure to like us if you are on social media. And we record all of our sessions and we post them onto our YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe to our channel so that you get notified when new sessions are available for you to view. We have well over 400 sessions up on our channel for you to peruse. So please be sure to take a look and subscribe to our channel. Again, if you have questions, type them in that chat box. We'll get to them at the end during the Q&A. And with that, I am going to turn it over to David, who's going to introduce today's session and talk a little bit about the Technology Division. And I'm going to pull a website up for you.
Thank you, Christine. So today we're very happy to have the city of representatives from the city of Burlingame, MIG, and the city of Gainesville to talk to us about how digital transformation touches with our work as planners and planning practitioners across multiple discipline areas. The Technology Division has quite a few resources that we think are very, very valuable. One of them is the urban and regional planning resources GitHub page, where we did a hackathon not too long ago, led by Leon Klass of the Technology Division. And we also are looking for new officers as well. So if you have any interest, please reach out to the Technology Division. And if you're also looking for potential participation opportunities at MPC, we are very interested, and we have a survey out to folks where we're trying to get volunteers to kind of help us engage with other planners about applications of technology, and also engage with your questions if you have any. So if you have any questions, please, you can find out about our board at tech.planning.org. and some of the other resources we have, such as a GitHub for Planners webinar that we did last year. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to our incredible presenters, and I'm very grateful for everybody who's come to listen to these stories and think and reflect on how we can make planning more accessible, transparent, and convenient for people that interact with the planning system. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready to go? My name is Kevin Gardiner, and I'm the Community Development Director with the City of Burlingame. And I'm going to show my screen here and switch to this mode here.
Looks great.
Thank you. I'm here also with Steve Kokotas from MIG, who is our general plan consultant and also our Eplan consultant, and he will provide some technical information at the end of this presentation. Just to give an introduction to the city of Burlingame, it's a community of about 30,000 people, about 15 miles south of San Francisco in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's an older community. It's a little over 100 years, which at least in California is old. Maybe not in other parts of the country, but and the general plan update was something that began in 2015 and continued, was ultimately adopted in 2019. We branded it like a lot of people do these days and called it Envision Burlingame, and that I think was the first acknowledgement that not everybody really knows what a general plan is or a comprehensive plan. I'm going to call it a general plan as that's what we call it in California, but it is comparable to a comprehensive plan in other parts of the country. So it's already a kind of document that people are not necessarily familiar with, so we thought we would try to frame it in a way that people are able to understand. And it's just interesting, to date now people call it Envision Burlingame. They don't call it the general plan. It's really stuck. The initial layout as we went through drafts was what you would expect in a conventional general plan. Very nicely laid out. This is actually done in Word, and MIG gets a lot of credit for just doing a great job laying out a good looking Word document. The diagrams and such were done in Adobe Suite, but it all comes together. And this is what we used for the review with the Planning Commission and City Council. So this would be the kind of official version. But as this was being developed, we at one point MIG came to us and said, we're at a fork in the road and we want to pitch something to you, just see if you're interested. We can continue as we're going with our PDF version. It's basically a hard copy that people can download as a PDF. We could put it into InDesign, make it look really great. Or how about this other idea? We've been working on these E-plans. They'd just done one for the city of Hayward over in the East Bay near us, a general plan, E-plan. They'd also done another one for the city of El Segundo, California, with a specific plan. And we really like the Hayward one in that it looks like a website, but it has the framework of a general plan. So it's got all the elements. Basically, if you're familiar with the general plan, you can find your way around pretty easily. But also, if you're not familiar with the general plan, it has that user friendliness that you would get from a website. So at that fork in the road, we did a little internal discussion, went to the city manager, said, what do you think? MIG gave us a demo, and it was a bit of a leap of faith, but we said, let's do it. We know what the status quo is, and we've heard that the term plans that stay on the bookcase or bookshelf. We don't want that. So we want the plan to be living and engaging and available for people to understand and to use on a daily basis. So these next few slides I will walk through. These are recordings of a walkthrough of the plan. I didn't want to risk the technology of possibly not having the website work properly in this webinar. So, but we can look at the plan later in Q&A if that makes sense. It does look like a website, and it has a kind of splash page that we're used to seeing. It also has the headings that refer to the different parts of the general plan. And as you scroll down, it tells people what this is, that the general plan is the blueprint for the future. Again, assuming people don't necessarily know what a general plan is. And then each of the elements, they have been given more user-friendly names. Community character is the land use element. Mobility is the circulation element. And as you scroll along, these are each of the state mandated elements, but and it mentions this is the community safety element. And then scrolling up, another thing that's really unique to the E-plans is the ability to change the language. This is done through Google Translation. So there's a Spanish version. You can change it to Chinese. We also have Vietnamese and Filipino. Those are the predominant languages in this area. For this demo, we'll go back to English. And then as we scroll down, we have a section called Frequently Asked Questions that I'll get back to in a future slide. This is not an official part of the general plan, but it is, again, something to be user-friendly and help people navigate their way. Health and sustainability were big topics in the general plan update, so we've got some kind of jumps to that. And then the focus area map was important in that one of the big themes of the general plan was identifying areas that we want to keep the same and areas that we want to see changes. I'll move to the next slide here. So let's look at one of these tabs. We'll say mobility, which is the circulation element. And shoot, I am sorry, I skipped over a slide. So I'm gonna do a little quick course correction here. All right, first let's look at the introduction community context. This is for somebody who doesn't even know what a general plan is. It talks about what a general plan is. But then also you'll see these underlined words. These are pop-ups that explain what all these different terms are. What is a policy? This is interesting, capital C city versus small c city. It's, you know, maybe a nuance, but people may be asking why is it one way or the other. So it does help people to understand the plan. At any time you can click on the icon and go back to the home page. Community character is the land use element, so let's look at that. We'll do the learn more. And as you scroll down, you'll see a description of community character. Then on the left are the land use plan map. We're not going to open it here, but it's a pop-up. And then we've got historic structures and we've got the neighborhood context maps. And then let's look at the neighborhoods tab. And this was something that was interesting to people. On the left, you'll see all of these are the neighborhoods that were designated as change areas. So you can learn about each one specifically and what kinds of changes people had in mind. We've clicked on downtown here, gives a planning context, a vision. There's an illustrative plan to show people where the boundaries of the area is, and then you get into the goals and policies that we're all familiar with. The goal is right up there at top, and then you can expand the policies. You'll also see these icons, and these refer to, in this case, master plan is applicable and development review are applicable. What are these icons? And then there's a little key. And these icons are important as we'll get to the implementation part of the plan. It's all part of this coding that's in the background. And Steve can also talk about that more when he gets to his part of the presentation. So now let's go back to the mobility section or circulation chapters, as maybe we're more familiar. You can also just skip to a particular area rather than starting from the top. If you're really interested in parking, here's a whole section on parking with the parking goal, all the different policies related to parking in the same structure with being able to expand each policy out. We've also got our maps on the left with the circulation network map, bicycle network map. We have a cross section for the different bike classes, so type 1, 2, 3, 4, so people know what that means, and then also a transit priority network map. So the frequently asked questions was something we added. This was something the Hayward plan did, and we have it by different interest areas. This is a narrative, so it's not an official part of the plan, but it's meant to help people navigate. And we included some of the questions that either we had heard through the process or that we thought people would be asking as they looked at the plan. It can include things that are not really in the plan, like how do I expand my house? It's not really in the general plan, so here's a link to the planning division. This takes you to our city website directly and to the planning division, and basically send somebody on that road for there. Now we'll go and see one of these other frequently asked questions categories. Let's check out what we have for the developers. We definitely have a lot of developers wanting to get general plan interpretation. How does it relate to the zoning? There's a little description there. One of the questions we get is, where can I build housing? That's a big thing here in Burlingame, so it mentions the housing element. And in this case, it's we have an 8-year cycle that we're actually updating the housing element right now. And the last slide in the demo here is to look at these implementation programs. This is where you really have the accountability behind the plan. You'll see our icons are back with community character, economic development, mobility, all the familiar categories. And this is how you can filter your implementation programs. If you want to look at just, for example, just the mobility programs, click on the mobility icon. It will pull up all of the mobility related implementation programs, and this is all, and then you can expand on each one, see who's the responsible department, who are supporting departments. There's icons for the different program types, and then also it keys to the particular policies and programs that are related to that, into that particular implementation program. You can also go back to our frequently asked questions category. So if you're, for example, on the City Council or the Planning Commission, you can see all of the different filters are right there. This looks a lot like a lot of the websites we're used to using. You can also customize it. So let's say you just don't care about parking for whatever reason, you can delete that. All the other filters are still there. Presumably some of the parking specific implementation programs have been have gone away. And then at the end, you can also export the results. So this is useful for reporting, for staff reports. It exports the results as a CSV file, and that gives you all the details of the implementation programs, as well as the status of the programs. So what's the community reaction been like? We have still a kind of parallel world up on the top. There is a screenshot of our City of Burlingame municipal website, which does have a page for the general plan update. You can download the PDF version, which was what was officially adopted, but it also provides a link to the Eplan, which is called Envision Burlingame. And that was a choice that we knew that the brand had really stuck. Envisionburlingame.org was originally the general plan engagement website, and then it was ultimately replaced with the ePlan so that people who are already used to going to that website would now find the plan there. In terms of community reception, I think the ePlan is definitely more accessible to the lay public, so they can find things pretty easily and have a better understanding of what the general plan is about. It's much more user-friendly as opposed to opening up a PDF and really not even knowing where to start. Probably the one group that does still prefer the PDF version would be those who are really already familiar with general plans or comprehensive plans and know where to find things and know how to kind of build the policy arguments and such. So that would be developers and their attorneys in particular. So they will often use that PDF version. But it's also very easy to find if somebody mentions policy M2-1 or something. It's really easy to find it on the ePlan. So we're finding the staff are using the ePlan more than the conventional PDF as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve from MIG, and he has a couple slides here to talk about the under the hood, which is particularly relevant to this technology presentation. So Steve, you're on.
Oh, I think you're muted though.
Yes, I was. Amazing. Even 2 years after the pandemic, I still forget. Click on unmute. Anyway, Kevin, that was great. Thank you. It's great to hear that overview. When we think back to when we were first kind of conceptualizing what this online e-plan would be, and we were thinking about the various features that a digital transformation would enable, and then to hear you speak about them so effortlessly and see them implemented, it's really great. So what's under the hood? It's a content management system that is under the hood, and most public agencies use content management systems, no longer static websites. Content management system allows non-technical people to easily update content in a website. In this case, we're using open source solution, Drupal particularly. Many public agencies use Drupal or WordPress. Advantages of open source solutions are that there's no licensing costs, and they tend to be, especially these two, very secure, and there's a large community of developers supporting them. And then for map integration, which is really important when you're working with planning documents, both of these content management systems easily support a variety of map platforms, from Esri to Google to Mapbox. In this case, we're using Mapbox because we felt it was we're not presenting a bunch of layers. We just wanted to use it as a tool to present the neighborhoods and then link to the content. So a very simple iframe integration. And what really makes the Eplan an Eplan rather than just a CMS is the custom coding. And some of the examples of the custom coding are the filtered search interface for implementation programs, as well as the glossary tooltips that Kevin highlighted. So that's you can't just take a vanilla content management system and turn it into an Eplan. There generally needs to be some custom coding. Eventually, there might be some plugins that people develop that help do that for you. And then there's a back office for city administration. And when you have a back office, it's really important that you think about permissions and roles. In the case of Envision Burlingame, we have a general plan. The only area that we provide the city with access to is the implementation programs and the ability to update the status and provide a description. And the reason we do that is to make sure that the content remains the same and that it's easy for city staff to go in and make the desired changes. They don't have to sort through a bunch of capability that they don't use. And then, of course, the logging of changes. It's really important that if things do change, that there's a way for the city to look back and see what's changed. And with the Drupal CMS that's built in, you just need to know how to configure and enable that feature. Next slide, Kevin. And then the other aspect of the technology that I thought was important to talk about is how the content management system, how the Eplan is being provided. It's being provided as software as a service. And what that means is that the MIG is maintaining the software, and we're maintaining it on the cloud. We perform the CMS platform updates. We also make sure performance is optimized. And then if needed, Burlingame staff could call us for administrative support, or down the road if we want to add future features or enhancements to the site. In particular, I think a valuable enhancement down the road would be added features to the search interface. We're working on another Eplan now for Ventura County, and there's some enhancements there that I think are valuable, and that's the benefit of us. With each new client, we add new features, then we can make those features available to future clients. So with that, that wraps up the under the hood component.
Thank you, Steve. And that wraps up our presentation. The Envision Burlingame website can be found at envisionburlingame.org. We hope you'll check it out, and we'll be available for questions later in the webinar.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess that makes it my turn. Hi, I'm Miranda Searing with the City of Gainesville, and I'm going to talk to you guys about our electronic plan review and permitting software today. Don't see the share screen that's come up just yet. There we go. Okay. So I'd like to talk about how electronic plan review and permitting has really transformed our customer experience. I don't know why my computer's sticking. It's not moving to the next slide. There we go. So first, I'd like to just show you a quick timeline of our path to a more digital experience. We implemented our ePlan review software back in 2017 and have been using that ever since. And this year, we also upgraded our digital permitting software to a new system and went live with that as well. So phase one for us was really taking a look at our old paper plan review process to figure out what wasn't working for us. And here we found 3 key elements that really needed our immediate attention. And that was the coordination, organization, and storage. Paper plan review really lacked a coordination among applicants and reviewers. So applicants had to submit multiple plan sets to us, and these were manually distributed, often to other locations for other reviewers. Reviews, because of this, occurred in a linear format, and there was really no established due date or timeline. It could take weeks to even several months for a project to see an approval. There was really no established tracking system to follow the review life, and it made it very difficult for applicants to check in on the status of their review. Comments were almost always handwritten, and they weren't accessible to other reviewers unless requested. So this often left reviewers unaware of each other's comments. It was messy. The lack of coordination led to lots of duplicate plan sets existing on the job site, which led a lot of confusion for our inspectors to know what the actual approved plan set was. Revisions were very difficult and hard to manage. Storage was chaotic, and filing systems were definitely not trustworthy. Sometimes, because of the cost of printing, only one set of approved plans would exist on the job site, and it wasn't even available to all the trades. Storage is a big one, so paper plan review carried a lot of weight, quite literally. Staff that were actively reviewing a project had to store these plans in their personal office space. So a lot of times we saw offices just stacked with paper. We had to dedicate valuable space in our office to be storage rooms specifically for these plans. Any plans that were no longer in review are still required to be kept. So this created the need for storage in large warehouses, and this also created additional expenses for our department. And retrieving those plans could be difficult, costly, and definitely time-consuming. So our solution to this was ePlan review. We implemented the system back in 2017. We decided to go fully digital, and we only allow electronic plan review now. We accept no paper plans at all. Simply put, ePlan review saves applicants time, money, and resources. We are using an evolved product. We're using Project Docs, currently on version 9.1. So it allows plan uploads from anywhere at any time. It's fully web-based. It improves review times by allowing for concurrent reviews and really reduces the paper, printing, fuel, storage, and disposal cost of that paper plan review. I just wanted to touch on this because I know it's something that's really impacted all of us, and in a time of uncertainty, going digital really kept us going. So we were able to physically close our doors, but keep our offices open to the public for our services. We worked almost fully remote for about 2 years, and going digital really allowed us the opportunity to still stay connected with our customers. We looked for any technology we could use. We really started using Microsoft Teams a lot to hold all of our meetings virtually. And we also set up some virtual inspection programs to limit the number of physical job sites. So all of our inspectors were issued iPads and able to do some of the more simple reviews through things like FaceTime or Skype. But how did ePlan Review solve those problems for us? So now applicants are able to submit one electronic plan set, and it's immediately distributed to each of those reviewing departments. And this really allowed us to pull in additional reviewers that may not have been able to look at those plans before, increases the overall efficiency, and helps us to build a more sustainable city. We are now issuing an automatic 15 business day review window on all review cycles. We are tracking those due dates, and they're now easily accessible to our applicants that want to check in on a status of their project. And digital comments and markups can be configured into easily accessible reports that are viewable by both staff and our applicants. The status reports are available in real time. This is our department review status report. Here you can see how many reviewing departments were able to pull into a single review, everything from utilities, public works, our local fire department, mobility, urban forestry, planning, and our building division. We're providing both applicants and the other reviewers the name of the reviewer and their direct contact information in case they want to reach out to them for questions. They can see the status and any comments related to that status. And then once this is submitted back to us, there's also a place where the applicant can respond. So this is available in real time as their project is being reviewed, although they may not have received the comments fully back yet. They can take a look at what's going on during the process. They now have a variety of digital tools to leave comments and markups on plan sheets. So over on the left side, you'll see a toolbar that lists some of the unique features that they can use to mark up these individual plan sheets. And on the right side is the comment box, where you'll see the just text comments that reviewers are making. It will also give you the name of the reviewer and the date and time that they've left that comment. So applicants can view these comments on individual sheets like we just looked at before, or they can pull these consolidated comment reports. This is especially nice for those really large projects that end up having tons of comments. So they can pull one report. This can be pulled through Excel also if they want to maybe give this to an architect or engineer so they can make sure all the comments get addressed. It's just a really nice way to keep them all together. So the concurrent review is now allowing each department to approve that same set of digital plans within that 15-day timeline. Revisions are easily submitted and tracked. We have established due dates based on revision scope thresholds, and those can range between 5 and 15 days. Plans are now stored digitally, so they're easily accessible just by using the search function. And we can grant access to these plans to anyone. So whether it's someone who's directly involved in the project, or maybe even a neighbor that just is curious about what's going on next door, there are custom permissions where we can grant a view-only access to these projects if they'd like to take a look at those plans. The organized task lists make it really easy to track projects now. So we can take a look here and see the project, what reviewer it's assigned to, their department, the status of their task, and the due date. This is also available to applicants so they can track due dates and really have a clear understanding of where their project is in the process. Separate review folders make it really easy to find drawings and documents. Everything gets uploaded as an individual plan sheet and is named according to the content. So before you open that file, you should know exactly what you're about to review. And revised plan sheets create version files. So these are easily viewed side by side in a comparison mode. If you see that little V4 with the circle around it, that lets us know this is the 4th version of that plan that has been submitted. So now staff can easily access these plans from anywhere. They no longer need to store these paper files. We've been able to create additional office space, libraries, and even some fun flex spaces for our employees with those old storage rooms. Digital record keeping eliminates the need for those large and costly storage warehouses. We do hope to one day be able to scan all of our old files into the existing system. And plans are now easily retrieved with just a few clicks of a button. And I just wanted to share some success stories. So Paul Myers is our Chief Plans Examiner here at the city. And he says, using project docs for electronic plan review allows you to manage your workload, easily approve revisions, save approved drawings and documents permanently for the public record, and avoid the congestion, storage, and cost of paper plans. Reviews can be performed simultaneously, and review comments are organized in an easy-to-create report. Project Docs has improved our productivity 100% and is a must for managing large projects with hundreds of drawings. It is like stepping out of the Stone Age. And Jessica Junkin is a project coordinator with one of our local engineering firms here. She says that making the switch to Project Docs has streamlined the entire review process from start to finish. It allows us to work efficiently and effortlessly with reviewers to provide the best development plan possible for our clients. The electronic process is also cost-effective for our clients by reducing printing costs. It's a total win-win. With success also comes lessons learned. So these are some of the areas that we became aware of with implementing ePlan review. So digital technology is great, but it's not going to manage and maintain itself. There are lots of really unique and cool tools that you can use, but consistency is key, especially among reviewers using these tools. And it's going to require a new skill set for both staff and applicants. So training is really crucial to the success. One way we've helped with some of these issues is creating the development review coordinator position, which is actually my position with the city. And I help to manage that review process. I coordinate with applicants and reviewers, run reports for project deadlines to make sure we're meeting all of those due dates, and train all of our staff and help any applicants navigate that ePlan review site as needed. Phase 3 for us was taking a look at the out-of-date digital permitting software we already had, and we implemented a new software. So this was our previous software, Enterprise. It was a Harris product, definitely was not intuitive, very unreliable. We were having to update and maintain all of our addressing, GIS, and flood data on our own in-house. It required a private VPN connection, which made remote work a little more difficult and definitely harder for our inspectors out there in the field. And we had no planning and development online application or payment option yet. They were using ePlan review, but the actual application process was still in person. So with that, we implemented Permit GNV, which we just went live with February 7th of this year. So we're just about 2 months in. It is now a web-based platform. So basically, as long as you have an internet connection, you can access this site. It's really become a one-stop shop for our department, who handles permitting, development, rental housing, and code enforcement. So now our users can get on just one website and be able to take care of any of those needs. And it's fully integrated with our Eplan review software, our GIS data, and our addressing database. This is a quick look at the internal system dashboard with Permit GNV. So you can see there's easily configurable metrics, reports, and task lists for process tracking. And this is completely customizable by each user based on their needs for what they would need to track. Custom reports can be created for basically any data that's in our system, and we can share this on the portal for public access. This is great for public records requests and really saves staff time in having to prepare those reports. We are now fully integrated and share a two-way integration with our Eplan review software. So this means that status updates and approved plan sets are going to automatically be pushed over to that other system. This is really nice for our users that would just like to use one portal. We were also able to integrate our GIS data. So when a permit gets applied for or a development project, it's automatically going to pull in that zoning, the flood zone, and if there's any historic district data. We were also able to migrate all of our previous systems. So now our records reside in one system for easy access. We're hoping to include all of those paper records at a future date also. So this is just a quick look at the systems that we've used over the years. Prior to the launch of Permit GNV, we did have to use each of these systems individually to find records in the years that they would have been applied for. So now we can find all of our records in one system, and they're available to the public as well. We were able to create some custom conditions on issuing permits or scheduling inspections. Here we're looking at things like, does the contractor have the right type of license to apply for this? Is their license valid? Do they have insurance? Have all of the fees on this project been paid before it gets issued? Have the trade permits been finalized before a building final is being scheduled? And this is just an example of the pop-up that might come up if any of those conditions haven't been met. Another really cool feature, besides being able to just schedule inspections on the portal, they can also use a text message or our IVR service. This is really helpful to those contractors out in the field that may not have direct access to a computer on the job site. So it's going to let them know if their permit inspection has been scheduled successfully, and if not, it's going to let them know why it hasn't been scheduled. And they do receive instructions on how to use this with their issued building permit. AS5 for us is just continuing to look for new innovative technology, any way that we can improve our digital processes. We do have an upgrade to our Eplan review software coming up. That is in the works now to Project Docs version 9.2, and we're hoping to be live with that by fall of this year. I did just want to include my information here in case any of you have any questions and wanted to reach out to me directly after the presentation. I would be happy to talk more about our digital processes or show you live demos or anything like that. But thank you for listening. I hope you guys found this helpful, and that is going to conclude my presentation for today.
Great, thank you. So let's jump into some questions here. If everyone wants to go ahead and throw their webcams back on, we can get started. Folks, if you have questions, just go ahead and type them in the questions box in your GoToWebinar tool panel. And let me just take back these controls. Wonderful. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so the burning question from our first group of presenters on the E-Plan. The people want to know, are you able to view traffic metrics? Like, how many people are actually visiting the site to look at things? What pages are the most visited? Are you able to see these types of metrics?
Yes, we are. We use Google Analytics to track analytics and yeah, so we can provide that information. I don't have it available today to share, but it is available to the city and to staff.
Oh, okay, great. So neither one of you have any inkling of, what some of the top pages were at this time?
I do. Yeah, the top pages are the frequently asked questions pages and the implementation programs.
Great. And you also mentioned that internally, staff is using the E-Plan in place, or maybe in conjunction with a PDF format. Have you received any feedback about that? Why it's easier? Why they prefer it? Why they don't prefer it? Anything from the staff perspective that folks who are thinking about this can kind of take back to their groups about the usefulness of an E-Plan from the staff side?
Yeah, I do. We found, because you can search so easily, if you're trying to find a particular policy and you've got just the right phrase, it'll pull up that policy. You could do a search through a PDF as well, so that's the other way to do it. But because the E-Plan is as easy to use as a website and people are used to searching on websites, we found the same with our zoning ordinance. We used to all have our hard copy zoning binders on our desks, and once it went digital, it's just so much easier to just jump to whatever you're looking for when you've got that capability.
Great. Let's talk about cost for a moment for both projects here. Let's start with the E-Plan. What is the cost of preparing something kind of so in depth as this within, I assume it's within, as you said, within the city's website structure? How much did this cost?
So Steve may be able to speak a little better on a standalone. What's harder, I did anticipate this question, and the E-Plan was integrated with the entire general plan and zoning ordinance update. So it's a little hard to just pull out the E-Plan itself. The full cost, we did a general plan update that included zoning ordinance update, general plan, climate action plan, and environmental impact report. The full cost was 1.4 million. The E-Plan was in there. There were some line items related to the E-Plan, but as Steve mentioned, it's also, the coding started very early, so the E-Plan was kind of all over there. So I wish I had a nice specific number, but that was the cost of doing a full effort that included an E-Plan within the context of all these other things we're doing.
Sure. And then Miranda, on your end, do you have? Oh, go ahead, Steve.
If I could add on the cost, one
Please.
thing we did with Burlingame and with all our clients is at the very beginning, talk to the city about, do you want a very nicely produced print document, or would you rather have a web-based document? And so the reason that's relevant is you spend a lot of time and money creating a very nice InDesign document that we didn't spend in the case of Burlingame. Instead, use those resources for the E-Plan. And then similarly, in the if you know from the beginning that you want to do an E-plan, you save time by when you're developing the document, you develop it in ways that make it easy to create a website. So we had a bunch of Excel worksheets, for example, that helped. So initially we built the general plan using Excel, and which sounds a little weird, but it worked out great from a digital transformation point of view.
Great. Miranda, how about you on your end? Do you have any kind of figure for this?
Yeah, I didn't prepare an exact number, but I know our software with Evolve using the E-Plan review is a contract-based price. I think we are coming up on the end of a 5-year contract with them. So if anyone's interested in those actual numbers, feel free to follow up with me and I can get you like the real cost of the contract.
Thank you. Do you know if the city's permit fees pay for the cost of maintaining and upgrading the system? Is it like kind of a one for one, or is there still a pretty great discrepancy?
I would say that the permit fees are taking care of the cost of this, and it's definitely worth it in just all the technology that we have and how much easier that it makes it for not only us internally, but our customers as well. So I don't know the exact cost again, but I would say comfortably that our permit fees are able to cover that cost.
Okay.
And if I could add to what we're finding with the more digital we get, the less burden on staff to answer questions manually. So there is some indirect cost savings in that people aren't coming into the counter and saying, what's the land use designation or whatever. It's really easy for them to look it up online. And we found our counter is just not as busy as it was with between the zoning ordinance and the general plan all being digitized at this point.
Interesting.
And I can also add on the cost side that because we're doing another project right now, as I mentioned, with the county inventor and their general plan, and we were going to reuse the Burlingame plan built in Drupal, and their county uses WordPress. So we had estimated it would cost us around $50,000 to $75,000 to take their existing general plan and create an E-plan for it. But then when they said they needed it in WordPress, we had to redo the coding, and now that's around $125,000. But what it means then for future agencies that want to use the software is that we now have it available in both Drupal and in WordPress, and so it can be more cost effectively deployed. So that's just to give you a range, somewhere 50 to 125,000.
While we're talking about this, there are a couple questions coming in about accessibility standards, ADA compliance. Does that sort of come in naturally, or is that something that you have to code specifically? I think it was yours at least that you could select different languages and things like that, but in terms of anything else ADA compliance wise, was there anything that you had to do after the fact or anything that took some extra steps?
Yeah, ADA accessibility is incredibly important, and so we build that in, and so we if there's any tables, you can't just do pictures of tables. You have to code the tables in HTML so that then screen readers can read them. Anything you say, anything you present in an image has to be explained in the text, or there has to be, text in the background that is read. We have an accessibility coder on our team who's really fluent in Website Accessibility Initiative, the ARIA code that is sort of, it's like another coding system and language that's under the hood that ensures that screen readers have users with screen readers have a good experience. So the answer is yes, that you need to take that into consideration, and it needs to be built in, and it does add extra expense up front because you can't just put images in and assume that people will be able to read them. You have to translate those images so that screen readers can read them.
Thank you. Miranda, let's jump back to you here for a second. Tell us, sometimes people don't read directions. They don't follow things correctly. They don't do the steps. They're always calling, going, it's not working. How often do you get that? How often do you get folks saying, can I just submit it the way I used to? Do I really have to go through this? It's not working for me. I only have paper things. I have to scan this. I have to do that. Do you have a lot of that, or did you, I guess, at the front end of releasing this? And kind of what did you do to kind of calm the fears of those that just really wanted to submit things the way they used to?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the beginning, there was a lot of pushback. Contractors especially aren't always the most tech savvy people, and they hated it at first. But then when they realized how much quicker the process was going to be for them, they grew to love it. We offer training to people that are struggling with using the system. So we'll give one-on-one sessions to them and sit and walk an entire project through with them. We do offer scanning and uploading for those that just are really, really struggling and aren't going to be able to get it, especially those like owner builders or mom and pops that may only be doing that one project with us. We don't expect them to learn our entire system, but we do have regulars, and those people have become experts at this system. They probably know it better than some of us, and they will send us friendly reminders all the time to let us know that things are due. They've really grown to love the system and all of the functions that it has. So I think, a lot of times people are just scared of technology because it's a change. But if we show them how to use it and they get more comfortable with using it, and it really increases their experience, and just the review time is so much faster, they've really grown to appreciate the system.
There's a couple questions about the kind of the review process of things. So this one, I'm just going to read it word for word because it pretty much summarizes a couple of these questions. How do you ensure the plans submitted meet the minimum submittal criteria before they're sent to all reviewers? So can you clarify? It sounds like once the plans are uploaded by the applicant, all reviewers can see the plans immediately, which then appears to skip the initial review for compliance with the application submittal checklist. So I guess first, is it true that all reviewers have access to it right away? And is there someone kind of internally ensuring that they have met all of the metrics and they've uploaded all the files properly? And also, I guess, in the correct timeline? Could you kind of go over, I guess, the logistics of how the process from them uploading everything to the review and kind of the back and forth maybe, and if they have to resubmit things, how that works?
Yeah, so even though a reviewer might see the drawings there immediately, before it gets actually routed to review, so it's going to come into us, and our permit expediter team is going to receive a pre-screen review task. And that's where they're going to go in and do that sufficiency check to make sure the plans are uploaded in the correct orientation. They've given us all of the required documents that we need. We do provide them with a checklist, and we ask them to upload that checklist. They have to go through and actually list which plan sheet everything is on and where it can be found, so that it's easy for us to go in and find those at review. So if there was a problem with the review before it actually gets routed to reviewers to start that 15-day review process, it's going to go back to the applicant and say, you know, hey, you uploaded all of these drawings upside down, or you're missing a site plan, or whatever they may be missing. Then it comes back in again for another pre-screen review. We'll make sure those comments were addressed, and then it gets actually sent to a coordinator. So the coordinator takes a look at the project, and they then decide what departments need to be included in that review and route it out to all of those reviewers. That's where we start the actual 15-day timeline. So they'll get the 15 days to review the project. The report that I showed with the comments, that's what the applicant will see at the end. If it's approved in the first cycle, great, but that rarely ever happens. So they'll then get to see these comments, address them. It's resubmitted back to us, and then that coordinator takes a look at what they've submitted and make sure that it's good for the reviewers to look at again, and that's basically done until the project gets approved.
Okay, good. Thank you for taking us through those steps. That's helpful. Let's jump back to Burlingame. Now, the planning process for this, I guess this question isn't totally relevant to an E-plan, but was the planning process, was it mostly a digital or an in-person process? I guess particularly when it comes to the community engagement piece of it?
So it was mostly in person, given that we started the process in 2015, and at that time, in person was everything that was happening. The zoning ordinance update has been done virtually because that's when COVID hit. So the general plan was already finished in 2019, and we got it adopted and then we started the zoning ordinance update, and those were all done over Zoom. And it is interesting, that could be a whole nother topic, is community meetings in Zoom versus in person. And we've had lots of experience now with both, and see the merits in both. But nobody would have gone to a Zoom meeting for a general plan back in 2015 or 16. I'm not even sure Zoom was around quite yet, or if it was pretty niche. So.
When we're
And
talking,
then I think
oh, go ahead.
one other, yeah, just to mention that, you know, Kevin had said the brand Envision Burlingame was really helpful to get people to, you know, see and use the E-Plan. And that brand started during the community engagement process. And so there was a website called envisionburlingame.org, which is where you would go to find out about meetings and get background material and stay abreast of the process. And then when the engagement period was over and it was time to present the plan, that URL was now the same URL, and we used the same branding to communicate the plan online.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point, in that the initial website was a community outreach website as well. And so although the meetings were in person, there was lots of resources there for people to get involved and learn about the process as it went along.
Great. Let's talk about pros and cons. So if you're a community sitting on the line and you want to take this idea back to the rest of your group, in everyone's opinions, what are kind of the pros and cons of going digital? I guess let's start, because they're kind of sort of two separate things. Let's start with our E-Plan group. What do you think? What were some of the cons of doing the E-Plan? And then what were some of the pros that just really hit the top of the list?
I would say cons would be just the format is different. So particularly for if you're used to writing a staff report and tying into a goal and a policy and kind of going through that whole framework, it's different. So you're used to seeing a plan organized in a certain way, and kind of working that way. Here, the information is there, but it's just organized differently. So I wouldn't really call it a learning curve. It's something different. And that can include then with, I think that is why we still have the PDF versions around, is that when it comes to our commissions and our city council, they are also used to looking at the formal document, and they use the E-Plan in a more informal basis to just learn about questions that might be on their mind. But when it comes to, for example, a general plan amendment or land use determination, something like that, that's where the traditional form seems to be still kind of in the comfort level for the more public hearing kind of processes. Sorry, for the pros, I would say generally, the accessibility, as I mentioned, that there are developers and those who know general plans really well do prefer the old style because that's what they're used to. But I would say the lay public, and that includes both residents and businesses. And what's nice with the E-Plan is it also ties into parts. People may have questions and they may think it's in the general plan. For example, the one I showed where somebody says, I want to add on to my house. Where in the general plan do I find that? You don't really find it in the general plan. So we, instead of telling them, no, that's not in the general plan, go look here. We do tell them where to look, but we guide them there as opposed to just saying, nope, wrong document, find it somewhere else. So it is meant to be more user-friendly and help. Same with the small businesses, tie them in with economic development and kind of point them to the resources where maybe they thought it might be in the general plan, but it may be somewhere else in the city's organization.
Okay, and Miranda, from your end with the online permitting and all of that, what are some of the pros and the cons? I mean, I know I think kind of a pro con was that there was definitely some pushback in the beginning, and perhaps there are some groups that only might do this once, and so there might be some hand holding. But were there any other like obvious cons? And then what were your top pros to this?
Other than just the learning curve and needing to train people, I would just say, anytime you're using technology, there's going to be glitches at times. There's times where our software has gone down for a couple days, and then, you're scrambling back to like, how did we ever do this on paper? What do we even do? So there are times where you have to kind of figure out what you're going to do if your system is down. But to us, the major pro was being able to go remote during COVID. We were kind of ahead of the game already doing E-Plan in 2017. Most of our users were pretty familiar with the process already by the time we had to close the doors and go to a fully remote system. So that really helped us keep our operations open. And I mean, development didn't slow down here one bit. I mean, if anything, that was like the busiest thing that was happening in the city at the time because there was nothing else you could do. So that just really opened our eyes to see how using innovative technology, you just never know what's going to happen in the world, and always be prepared. And that truly just kind of helped us keep our job, helped us keep the city going. And we're just really thankful that we were able to do that and keep all of our staff safe at the same time.
Great. There are some questions coming in again about the E-Plan and using it, referencing it. So from the digital version versus a PDF version, and is there actually an official version that is used? And does your law department kind of have their eyes rolling back in their head? Are there any legalities to an e-plan? Is there anything stating that it has to be a certain type of format, or it has to be referenced or available in some certain way?
Steve may want to answer this in that the quick answer is there does need to be an official version, and it is a Word document in the background. So if we need to convey a official version, that Word document is what's powering the e-plan. So the two are pretty much the same. But I don't know, Steve, if I know this is particularly an issue with California jurisdictions, probably other states as well, where you do need to have an official on record version of the plan, and that's the one that gets amended and maintained.
Oh, I think you are muted, Steve.
Indeed. The other thing we do on the back end is we make sure roles and permissions are set such that staff can't inadvertently make changes. But then if they do make changes, we have a log of it. But as Kevin said, the Word doc is the official doc, and the only place that we allow any changes online that aren't, officially administered is, well, that's not even properly said. The only place we allow staff to make changes is the status and a description of the status for the implementation programs. So staff can go in and say, we're working on, this implementation program now, it's moved from not started to in progress or complete. Those are the three options. And then they can put a description and a link that describes the status more fully. And that's it, because once a general plan is adopted, it doesn't change unless there's an official amendment. And then those amendments are made in the Word doc and then implemented online.
In terms of staff making changes, there's a couple questions about the use of GIS in this. Is the staff able to make any kind of changes or updates to the mapping or anything kind of related to GIS? Or is that something where they kind of have to go through the tech side of things and can't just go in and
In the case
upload a new
of
file?
Yeah, in the case of Burlingame, we're not integrated with Burlingame's GIS data. What we have is we're using Mapbox as a UI feature, a user interface feature. It's a way for people to quickly understand the neighborhoods that are focused in the general plan, and then be able to navigate to that section of the general plan. So the short answer is we don't integrate with the city's GIS system. And if we did, we could integrate with the city's GIS, but then there would have to be, new protocols established that would need to be discussed and codified with city staff.
And I'll add that when the e-plan was prepared, we did not have all of these layers in our GIS system. I will be the first to admit we've been kind of behind the ball in terms of technological development generally. So the e-plan was unusual that we jumped on something, but we didn't have those resources at the time. So, as Steve describes it, those diagrams are a little more static as well, just because you've got to go through the amendment process. So until there's a formal amendment, you're really not changing those maps.
People are still, they want to know what Mapbox is. There's still some questions. Is it related to like ArcGIS, like an Esri product? Like, is it a standalone thing? What exactly is Mapbox? And I Googled it, literally it's mapbox.com. And that's as far as I've gotten. But if you could kind of clue us in on that and then is it free? Is it open source? Is it what? How does this talk to us a little more about Mapbox?
Okay, yeah, Mapbox is an alternative mapping platform, and they have a lot of free resources, and it has we find a very elegant user interface, and so we use it in the case of Burlingame. We can, so yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's an open source tool, and I think they do have like subscription versions. I'm not a Mapbox expert. We use it on several of our projects when it's appropriate. We also use Esri when appropriate, and we'll use Google Maps API. We use that probably more than anything because the familiarity with Google from the user point of view, especially the public, is really high, and the Google Maps API is really good. But in the case of Burlingame, that would have been overkill. Right, so Mapbox was just a good fit for us because we're, like I said, we're only using it as a way to tell a story, a simple story of, here are the neighborhoods that we focused on, and click here to go find out more about those neighborhoods.
And for those of us that are not technologically savvy, API is sort of what connects one program to another program so that they can work together, maybe?
Yeah, it's a way to share data between applications.
Okay, got it.
And I'll add the original, sorry, the source maps were prepared in, I hate to even say this, Adobe Illustrator. So they're not GIS at all. They're beautiful exhibits. I think now if we were to do this again, and for anybody that's contemplating this, GIS is much more readily available, and even Burlingame has it. So I would expect that it may still be something like a Mapbox application where you're taking the data and making an exhibit out of it for purposes of a diagram as opposed to real time. But my guess is you could do a lot more with a fully integrated GIS system at this point too.
And as planners, we all, come up against the notion of, you have all this great data and you have it in GIS, but to make that available to the public, it requires a graphic design sensibility that requires some good expertise in order to take GIS data and make it help it tell a story that is quickly understood visually. And so what we'll often do is use GIS to build the data and tell the initial sort of conceptual story, and then export it to Illustrator so that then we can enhance that story. So in the case of Burlingame, they have the enhanced story in terms of a static map, but the data is still there in the GIS. And so I think you need both in the case of it telling a spatial story. You need the GIS, and then you need the ability to enhance the map visually to make sure that it's it communicates and highlights the major elements of what it is you're trying to say.
Yeah, and I'll just add that aesthetically, the Illustrator maps are much nicer to look at. The GIS is fine, but as Steve mentions, it just is the data being expressed visually, whereas the Illustrator map, you can highlight certain features and really make it beautiful. And that helps the community because, again, you're telling the story. These are exhibits. They're not necessarily a zoning map. Maybe you do want to be able to click on things and have all these links and such, but the general plan map, it's really meant to be exhibits that help guide people and are really legible, easy for people to understand.
Great. Miranda, when you are accepting file uploads for supporting documents, do you accept things like GIS files? And if so, what kind of GIS files? And if not, is it just PDFs of maps, or how does that work? And I guess how detailed or how kind of fancy, I guess, can the uploads be of supporting documents?
Yeah, so we prefer that people upload PDFs, and we do in Florida have the requirement that they be electronically signed and sealed. So this is done through a third party so that we're able to verify the document. The actual software will allow you to upload like Word documents or other types of files. Our utility reviewers do sometimes need other types of files that they review. They would be able to speak a little bit more on that than I can, but we ask mostly that it be PDF documents, and we keep the drawings separated into individual files so they're easy to review. Documents that are multiple pages can be uploaded as like one PDF, so it's easy to follow the document. And we do give users a guide of how things should look and how they should be uploaded before they start using the software. That way they have, clear expectations of what we're going to want to see when we open up that project.
Okay, so primarily you prefer to stick with like PDF documents of things, unless it's something super technical like a utility or something like that, where they might need something more specific to review. Okay, great. There's another question that came in about the review of the applications, Miranda. Have there been any issues meeting the 15-day review timeline? Just given limited staffing for a lot of communities, and because it's, I guess, simple to upload everything, and so perhaps business is happening at an accelerated rate, which great. But do you have the staff capacity to meet that demand and in that 15-day window?
We have definitely struggled with that over the years, just with staff turnaround and things like that. I would say for the most part, we're really good about meeting those deadlines, especially since my position was created and there's someone who's actually monitoring all those due dates. And if we're not meeting those deadlines, I'm reaching out to those reviewers and saying, hey, what's going on? Can I help? Why hasn't this been completed yet? So of course, there are times where we're not going to meet the exact 15-day deadline, but we do try to stick to them as much as possible. And if there are issues, I will reach out to the applicant and let them know what's going on. Or, even when they first submit, we say it's a suggested 15-day review timeline. This is your estimated due date. That way they don't expect, hey, this was due yesterday, I haven't gotten it yet, what's going on? But for the most part, we've been able to really stick to those deadlines within a week, I would say.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and we'll get wrapping up here. Thanks, guys. I'm just kind of going one after another, and you guys are doing great. So this question is something that I had initially too, and a couple of folks have put this question into. As a planner, I like to really think high level, but I also like to think in the weeds, and I like to overthink a lot of things. So in terms of the E-Plan, if I was told that I was on a team that was going to be putting together our new general plan, master plan, whatever you want to call it, and we want to do it in a totally different format, we want it to be digital, my brain would be spit and fire in 12 different directions trying to come up with, how do you frame it? Because it's a totally new beast, right? You're not maybe taking a template of a generic plan with the generic components. Things are sort of scattered in different places and perhaps can have different meaning when they're not you know, combined in a document in the same place that they used to be. Yes, all the information is generally the same, but just figuring out kind of where you want everything placed and how you want to categorize and how you want people to see it, and, you know, the order in which you want people to experience it. I mean, I feel like a group would just be going back and forth and back and forth, everyone having a different idea about, you know, the order of operations. So to that, how did you figure out the order of operations? I assume you didn't quite approach it like you would a normal static plan. So, you know, kind of how did you approach a skeleton of a web version versus a static version? Or did you really start with a static version and then kind of plugged it in to kind of an online presence? How did this work without being derailed from all of the different opinions?
Sure. So it is the latter. It was designed as a static document as it was being drafted, but with the coding that Steve mentioned. So although it, you know, is being written in Word, which everybody's very comfortable with, it was following the usual format of the general plan elements with chapters for each element and the goals and policies arranged in the usual manner. So it didn't really start to look different until it became an Eplan, and that was at the end. So even through adoption, we were still using a Word version, very nicely illustrated Word version. It had all the photos in there, it had all the maps, everything was there. MIG did a great job of creating a great looking Word document that was also designed to then plug directly into the Eplan. So the Eplan is a sort of at the end of the trail, and it looks different, but then it's also particularly if people had been part of that drafting process, they do kind of know where the stuff is, and then it becomes familiar when you start seeing the goals and policies. You're like, oh yeah, there's some mobility policies. Here's everything. Yeah, okay. If it was designed entirely electronically, that would probably be something different. It's more like designing a website, and you know, we've done that too. The city did a redesign of its website a few years ago, and that's a very different process and much less, it's harder to have that as a group process because it's just it's not familiar, and so I would say at the core, at least for how we did our E-plan, is it was conventional in the background, and then showed up at the end of the line as something different but recognizable.
And I could elaborate on the process, because what Kevin, you know, and Burlingame were able to do is we showed them some examples of previous work, and then they selected kind of like, you know, like here's a version, as Kevin mentioned, the Hayward version that we like, and because it's even more complicated by the fact that there's all different devices and screen sizes. So, you know, and people moving the mobile. So the design has to take into consideration a small screen as well. And so, you know, our process, as Kevin mentioned, is very similar to like design of a website. You know, we would do some conceptual mock-ups, wireframes, that and show what it would look like on a mobile device versus a desktop, and you know, focused on the major. You look at your major templates, so you know, the home page, the FAQ, then the interior pages. There's chapter pages and there's sections, and so you know, you think of it logically. You break it into bits. You create the templates. You sketch them out. And you're always thinking about development and cost as well, because you want to leverage the existing UI elements that are out there that allow you to do things that optimize the user experience.
Okay, great. Guess what? It's time to end. We still have questions, and I mean, I could just personally keep asking questions all afternoon, but I won't. So folks, just to kind of recap everything, we are recording the session. We'll have it up on our YouTube channel. Just search Planning Webcast Series on YouTube and our channel will pop up. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you get notified when we post new sessions, and don't forget to peruse our well over 400 recordings that we have up there available for free. Don't forget to log your SAM credits and head over to our website, ohioplanning.org/planningwebcast, to register for all of our upcoming sessions that we have. I'm going to be loading up 3 or 4 more here for registration over the next couple of days. So be sure to head over there, and you can also get links to our recordings of all of our past sessions as well. And if you need any information to log those CM credits, all of that will be there too. Thank you to the Technology Division of APA for hosting today's session and for being a part of our consortium. And don't forget to head over to their website too. They have a ton of those resources that were mentioned at the top of our program today. So everyone, thanks for joining us today. Thanks to all of our panelists for stopping by and talking about all of your digital applications. We appreciate you. And everyone, have a great weekend, and we'll talk next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.